Hey guys, welcome to this very special episode of TFL Today, because today's episode is near and dear to my heart, Nathan, because we're talking about the top 10 80s Japanese sports cars you should buy today. And as you know, Japanese sports cars are getting red hot. I'm talking about the Toyota Supra Turbo, the Nissan 300ZX Twin Turbo, and
the Mazda Rx-7, the last version of that car.
Yeah, and so these are cars that aren't those three, but other Japanese cars near the 80s that we think you should buy today before they get too expensive. So let's start with number 10, and number 10, of course, has to be the Mazda MX-5 Miata, especially the first one with the pop-up headlights.
Absolutely. Now, consider this. This is a vehicle that right now you can run out and buy for between $2,000 and $3,000 and actually get a runner, and then go from there and build it up and make it into a proper track car or make it into a fun daily driver. Hell, one of our buddies, Emmy Hall, loves Mazdas and would drive it every single day, including through snow. She loves those cars. They're great, they're solid, and they're cheap.
Yeah, and you know, they are especially reliable. Those cars, even if they've been tracked, they were built wonderfully. There is one issue, of course, with them, and that is me and you don't fit.
Not really. It's usually a good idea for a large person to drive alone.
Especially because that wheel well intrudes into the passenger compartment.
Yeah, it does.
So it's actually harder for big guys to get in the passenger compartment. And the other issue for me is if I'm sitting in the car, I'm looking into the windscreen that's right here.
Number 9 is the Lexus SC 300 and 400. Now, these were front engine rear drive vehicles that right now are uber cheap, and they have big displacement, good power, rear drive, all the things that you drifter boys out there love, and just as importantly, they're kind of unique right now. Not many of them are on the road anymore. Yeah, they're,
of course, built by Toyota, same generation as the iconic Supra Turbo, so it's in that same kind of time frame. It's a Lexus, so it's got a little bit more luxury and a little bit less sportiness, but nevertheless, those engines are bulletproof and the cars are unique, and if you can find a clean one, go out and buy it before they get discovered and people snap them up. I think SC actually stands for Sports Coupe.
Look, personally speaking, I didn't think that they're the best Lexus out there, but they are very inexpensive, and yes, those engines are bulletproof. Really good for you tuner guys out there that want to give a first crack to a vehicle. All right, let's move on to something that you love.
I actually own this vehicle, and I'm going to get a lot of comments on this because it's the Nissan 300ZX Turbo. Not the Twin Turbo, but the previous generation. The Twin Turbo, which I love more with the super high-kiss four-wheel steering, is going through the roof. It's not affordable. These are affordable. They were turbocharged. They were more of a GT car. There were a lot of kind of square and boxy angles to them, but as a fun time capsule from the 80s, you throw a little bit of Miata in there, like a virgin, and you got yourself an 80s that is very affordable. And the turbo wasn't slow. I mean, it wasn't that slow. It was actually pretty fast, and it even had a little hood scoop on it.
Yeah, and if you get louvers on the back, it goes faster.
I had louvers on mine, Nathan.
Now, number 7 is the Mitsubishi Starion, one of my favorite cars ever, and of course, its cousin, the Plymouth Conquest. Now, these vehicles were turbocharged, if you could find them. Four-wheel independent suspension, actually really quick, even by today's standards. They handle fantastic. And right now, a lot of you guys like to get out there and modify them, but the prices so far haven't been astronomical, but I have a feeling it's going to go up soon.
Yeah, I have a friend who just bought one of these, and the parts between the Mitsubishi and the Plymouth are somewhat interchangeable.
Pretty much.
Another cool thing is this is a predecessor to the Evo.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that you see in the Starion eventually made its way into the Evo. So this was like the beginning of Mitsubishi's ascent to rule the rally world. And
yeah, they did rally these cars.
Even really cool cars.
Yeah, they were rear drive. But here's the cool part. We'll go to number 6, which actually is the predecessor and cousin to the Evo. And that, of course, is?
The Mitsubishi Eclipse and the Eagle Talon. I had a buddy who had an Eagle Talon.
Oh, yeah, the Talon?
Yeah, it was actually a really cool car. It's a little tight on the inside, but you can get them in all-wheel drive.
Oh, and turbo.
And turbocharged, and they were fast and fun, and, they're affordable right now. You can get all these cars you could probably buy if you shop smart for under 10K, and if you're really shop smart, for under 5K.
Yeah, absolutely. And consider this, that Mitsubishi, yes, okay, right now they're not doing great in this environment, but there are a lot of parts out there. There are a lot of people who build aftermarket parts for them. So the chance of you being able to rebuild one and make it as good as new, if not better, it's definitely possible.
All right, number 5 on our list we just purchased because it's right behind Nathan.
That's right.
It's the 1985. That's the last year of production for the Rx-7, the first generation. The normally aspirated and carbureted rotary motor in it. That one we purchased recently for $5,500. It's got 50,000 miles on it. It's completely original and pristine, and we're going to do a really fun video series around it. So not only are we making this list, but we're actually taking our own advice and buying the cars. $5,500 for a beautiful, clean 1985 Mazda Rx-7.
Yeah, it runs remarkably well, and if memory serves, it was a vehicle that you had back in high school.
It was one of the first vehicles that I ever owned. Yeah, so you know, I wasn't looking for it, but it was a one-owner car, and we saw it on Craigslist. Tommy got in it, saw it, and he said, you know, this is so cool. We have to buy it. So we bought it, and it is cool, and it's slow, but cool. It's only got about 100 horsepower. All right, number 4, Nathan.
Number 4 is the Toyota Celica / Supra, or Celica Supra, or Supra, the early edition.
Yeah, the first one where it was still a Celica, and then it was a / Supra, which meant that it was a little bit bigger than the regular Celica. It had a straight 6 in it.
Yep.
It was very squared off.
Yep.
Square jaw. Looked very similar to that 300ZX Turbo, right? It had that kind of same look. It competed against that.
Yeah, and it was a rear drive vehicle,
Cool, yeah.
and you know, obviously you can get one with a manual transmission, a 5-speed. The thing was about those vehicles, they are starting to climb right now, and so prices are going up. But if you look carefully, you can actually find some of the basic versions of those vehicles for reasonable prices.
And once again, more of a GT car. Of course, the Supra Turbo that eventually became iconic was much more of a sports car, but this one began it all. I think it's really cool. My cousin bought one. So I bought that, and he had a lot more money, so he bought the Supra, Celica Supra. He still has his. I sold mine, now I have that again.
There you go.
And here's the thing about these cars. A lot of these cars are for guys my age and guys my son's age.
Right.
It's like millennials, I think, love them because they're really, 80s are hot and they're really time capsules. And I love them because I grew up through that period. People in between, they don't get them. They're like, why? It's just a giant, heavy car
it's
that
not
doesn't go
that
around
fast
curves.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, and the cool thing about all the cars we've mentioned so far, and the rest of these on this list, is that they all are capable of being modified, and you could do some cool stuff with them.
But I'm not going to touch that one. Sorry, it's too original. It's only original once.
Just a little, okay. Okay.
Come on, 13-inch wheels, Nathan.
13-inch wheels.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're about that narrow. Pizza cutters. Okay, but eventually...
No power steering. You don't need it with 13.
You don't need it when that thing doesn't weigh anything. All right, let's move on to number 3. And this is a vehicle, well, to a degree that both of us have owned. Go for it.
The Honda Crx Si. Now, this is a front-wheel drive, 2-passenger car that is iconic for all you Honda fans out there because it embodied the DNA of Honda. It was fast, it was fun, it was affordable, it was just a really cool car, and it's what the CRZ should have been if they hadn't put the hybrid powertrain in it.
And a lot of other issues with that car. But I actually had the CRX, but I had the I version, which had like 50 horsepower, but it got really good gas mileage, and it handled really well. Roman's was cooler. But the point is that these cars are still fairly affordable, and people love modifying the hell out of them. This is a vehicle that you can buy. They don't weigh anything, which also means, of course, they're not very safe if you get hit, so don't get hit. But they are really, really good on the road. They handle beautifully.
Do you know what SI stands for?
No.
I think it's Sport Injection.
Sport Injection, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what the old SI moniker goes for. And you know, Nathan and I are on a different page. I love the cars as they are original. You know, the problem with a lot of these vehicles is that they've been heavily modified. And hopefully you can find one that hasn't been heavily modified, because once you modify them, it's really hard to bring them back to original, right? And you don't know.
Yeah.
So I always, when I'm looking for these vehicles, I look for one that's a one-owner car that nobody has messed with, that nobody has re-chipped, that nobody has put on an aftermarket exhaust, that nobody has turbofied, supercharged.
Yeah, okay. You know, there's some cars that really do have their value in not being messed with, and there are other cars that desperately need it. But let's move forward. to one that actually has a whole bunch of different variants and is no longer being made, and I really wish they would make it, and that's the Toyota MR2.
Yeah, what makes that car special, what made it special back in the day, of course, and we're talking about the first or the second generation. The first was kind of square, the next generation was kind of more round.
And the third generation was just ugly.
Yeah, forget the third. But the first two generations was that it was a mid-engine Ferrari competitor made by Toyota, basically. At least that's how I looked at it as a kid.
Well, yeah, and you know, they had a supercharged version and they had a turbocharged version, depending on which year you get. And they were really quick. I noticed a lot of guys like to go to track days with those cars, slightly modified, and they absolutely clean up at the track. They're wonderful track cars once you get used to driving them.
Hey, you know what's a common theme that I love in a lot of these cars?
Japanese?
No. Think again.
Oh, pop-up headlights!
That's right, the lights go like that.
I love pop-up headlights.
I love either like that or just like that.
Number one is the Acura Integra, especially the Type R. And there are a whole bunch of variants of the Acura Integra.
Stick with the first or second generation.
Yeah, the one with pop-up headlights.
When it was light and when it was fast and when it was fun. They made a ton of them. It's what... I remember going to the Acura dealership, Nathan, and there were two cars that I just lusted after. The Legend, yeah, big, old, heavy thing. NSX couldn't afford, so when my wife went to buy a car, we bought her the Integra.
And?
You know, we sold it to a friend of mine. He drove the wheels off of it. It went like a quarter, 250,000 miles without any issues. Wonderful car. Once again, not very powerful, front wheel drive.
Right.
But man, around the corner, it was a hoot.
There are a lot of tuners who love to play with those cars, but even in stock form, they were great drivers. They were a lot of fun, and they drive forever. If you can get a how do I put it in the play? I know. If you get one that's slightly used, that someone may have slightly modified, it's okay. Because there were a couple things it needed. It needed more tire, it needed more brake. Those are the two things I felt it always needed. And so sometimes people would put those on.
All these cars needed all that.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so, but anyway, it's a really good car. It's definitely number one on our list because there are so many out there. They're incredibly inexpensive right now.
All right, we always like to do a bonus, and can you guys guess which Japanese brand has not yet been on our list?
Subaru!
Actually, let's do two bonuses.
Oh, okay.
Let me do the first bonus because me and Nathan had a little bit of a discussion.
Yes.
So my mom bought this car and it was super unique. It's of course the Subaru Svx, which was Italian designed.
Yeah.
And it had some really crazy, interesting features at the time. I think the craziest, of course, was the fact that it had a Boxster 6. They said that you could actually roll the window down while it was raining and rain wouldn't come into the car, which actually worked.
Okay.
So all-wheel drive, I think it was like 220, 230 horsepower, only available in a automatic, and had these beautiful, cool exhaust. And now every car has kind of these almost...
But they were real functional exhausts, too.
Yeah, like slit, like exhaust.
Yeah. I loved that car. I loved the design of it. I hated the fact that it only came in an automatic, but there was a cooler car from Subaru.
There was?
Yes.
Pray tell, Nathan.
It was the Subaru Xt. Basically the driving wedge. It looks like something that could stop a door moving. I mean, it literally was a wedge. But now I know
I had a girlfriend who had that.
The wedge part of the car?
The car.
Okay. And they were
she
really...
had big eyes.
Indeed she did. This is a vehicle they had a 4-cylinder turbo. They did have a 6-cylinder, an H6 that was available, and then one of the earliest Subarus that did. 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, manual transmission, a steering wheel that had one weird spoke in it, and then there were really cool controls on the side.
On the side of the dashboard.
It was like a retro-futuristic car before the term even came into play. And, you know, they weren't really that fast, but there are a lot of guys who actually did a lot of amateur rally with them. I know that because I once raced Group N just for a little while in SEC, California, and there was a guy who had one, and he did really well with it until he rolled it. Point is that they're really unusual, there are very few out there, and they're usually pretty cheap.
You remember the show Galactica?
Battlestar Galactica? Yeah, I get this.
Yeah, with the
Cylons?
Yeah, that was the kind of car a Cylon would drive.
Yeah, okay. They're really geeked out early 80 car, but it was a really cool, unique car.
Get one of these cars before they get too crazy. Go find yourself an old Duran Duran tape.
There you go, and he said tape too, so and remember, we want to hear your opinion, so please add your choices below, let us know what you think.
Or would you go more Pet Shop Boys?
Oh, please. Motorhead and Iron Maiden, are you kidding me?
All right.
And of course, Rush.
Iron Maiden, Rush, or Pet Shop Boys.
Oh, God.
Guys, thanks for watching, and remember, check out TFLcar.com for more news, views,
and real-world reviews.
And get these cars before they get expensive.
Yeah, see you guys. Once again, write us, let us know.